Prime Minister quits after burnout. That's what we have there. A new claim area wakens, polls dispute ghosts. And the Star newspaper, KRA to spy on M-Pesa data to meet tax target. The taxman is expected to net 2.8 trillion Kenya shillings in the 2023-2024 financial year. The Matvani land at heart of NSSF fight. That is the main headline. Museveni lists areas for growth. And then New Vision, homosexuality, First Lady orders probe of Budo. And the nation from Nigeria, Makinde Ayu's deputy Shan Atiku's rally in Ibadan. The Guardian from Nigeria, again, petrol price adjusted to 185 naira per litre to appease marketers. The Sowetan from South Africa, class that defeated toughest odds. Pretoria News from South Africa, Solidarity joins fight for people's power, and South Africa will get white president in 2024, warns Mark Sitama. And the Daily News from Zimbabwe, hold referendum on in the air polls. And the Newsday from Zimbabwe as well, the limitation report, ZEC holds the access. And the Citizen from Tanzania, obesity among women a concern. The New Times from Rwanda, Gishumbi, seed multipliers to benefit from 1.3 billion, I think Rwandan money there, fund. And Businje lauds UK-based initiative supporting genocide survivors. And then I think the rest are from the UK. So I think I'll stop there for right now. Back to you, Doc.
Miriam, you can go ahead and read the newspapers from the USA. That's not a problem. Go ahead if you have the copies there. But I would like to welcome all of you who are on the platform. Valentine Obongonya, thank you very much. Welcome. Adeli from Kampala, my daughter, welcome to the show. The rest of you, all of you, Matovu, Honorable from Zimbabwe, thank you very much, Tatenda. This is a new format, a new concept of television combined with our Twitter space. As you speak now, you'll also be heard on our television station across, which is broadcasting Punchline Africa TV. So thank you very much. Wanda, what do you have about the newspapers in Africa? Any story you have picked about in the news, one of those newspapers in Kenya? What is going on there?
The quick one that I've picked from the newspapers from Kenya is the elections bit. It is like the moods. I mean, the other end is yet to move on, and probably there's so much that happened that we don't know, and probably people need to know. That is the Azimio and the Azimio, the Kenya Kwanza, and the Electoral Commission in Kenya. That is the independent, the IEBC. Now, the IEBC probably will be forced to answer. I don't know if they will be forced to answer, or if they'll answer or not. But Azimio team is seeking for answers, demanding for answers to know what exactly happened. According to them, they won the elections. But according to the electoral body, and the winning team believes that they won the elections. And therefore, we, the citizens, will wait to see what happens next. But I believe that will not, it won't affect so much in, looking into the economy and what's happening in the country. And such kind of things, the life is a bit expensive. But all the same, their answers or their questions that need answers. Azimio team need answers. They feel like they won the elections, but the electoral body didn't do justice to them. Therefore, that's
Have you
the quick one.
in a hold the microphone? Am I asking you? Can I ask you? I'm not. I don't dwell much on Kenya politics anymore since elections because I
Yeah.
left it to you Kenyans. Have you not healed from this election? A quick
Yeah, in
answer
most,
from you, please.
it takes times for a losing team to easily concede because it is a case of the winner takes it all. And the losing teams spend quite a lot, emotions, finances, time. Therefore, healing takes time. So people are
Okay.
yet to move on. Yeah.
Thank you very much. One of my speakers, Elif Ziwanda, historian teacher from Kenya. Thank you very much. Miriam, the co-host, do you have any more news from United Kingdom? Because my news seem to be on the same platform where I am. You can read them because for you, you have access down in Nairobi. You must have another platform that you can use to read the English newspapers headlines. But any topic that you feel that you can or you want to touch, the news that I have seen that are making wires is the killing of a journalist, an independent journalist in Rwanda, who has been found dead and wiped out. He wrote and said, Rwanda is one of the few countries on earth which is on hell. So this guy has now perished. That's also chilling news from East Africa. And another news from East Africa is the continuation of annoyance, people being annoyed with the peacekeeping force of East African stabilization force that is in DRC Congo. Is Congo itself becoming a boiling pot for any intervention in Africa? These are some of the things we can mix up. Do we have enough manpower to discuss these things at the UN? Let's kick on our topic, therefore, this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this topic is very important to you as an African. And if you want to speak, you want to enjoy, you want to listen, we shall go on. You can listen. First of all, 54 nations of Africa, independent states, excluding Sahawari, which is oppressed by Morocco, they have embassies and missions inside the United Nations. They hire rooms, they hire offices, they hire staff, they hire motorcade, they hire every type of what you can, they pay rent. I am lucky that my country, Uganda, bought a building. Therefore, it pays only rates to the City Council of New York or the Metropolitan Council of New York. We don't pay rent to anybody in the United States. Or our embassies were paid cash. We paid for the buildings. So kudos to the founding fathers of this nation, Uganda, because President Museveni cannot take credit of this. He did not buy it. It was bought by Idi Amin. And during Idi Amin, for every bad man in the street, there is something good that bad man can do in the market. So don't underrate all people. Idi Amin bought embassy in London. Our embassy in Trafalgar Square is bought in cash money. And we have nothing against anybody except to pay rents to the city of London, the borough of London, a city of London. I think that it is in one of the boroughs of London, of West, one of those in West East London, borough of either the East Borough of London. I will tell you which borough it is situated because that is between BBC and the fund where you find the Uganda embassy and the Zimbabwe embassy also bought a building. You know, there are countries in Africa that you play about with their names. And the Honorable also give credit to Mugabe and Ian Smith. They bought a building on the Strand. They don't pay rent. That is very good. But now when we go across to the New York, United Nations, surely a country that has no medicine, a country that has no clinic, a country where Panadol is more expensive than anything else. Panadol is the thing that is a malaria. It can cure pain and it is more expensive. But you are holding an ambassador with a full staff, full package of staff to workers, also on diplomatic pay, allowances. You can't take them to New York and you pay them shillings. You pay them in dollars or you pay them in naira. No, you pay them in dollars. So look at the 54 embassies. How much money do they give to the American government? How much money do they give to these same men who have taken money from us before? That's why, ladies and gentlemen, I bring this topic to you. Is it worth it? Does it add value? Is it adding value to you as a person, an African, a taxpayer? Where I hear in Kenya, even the tax, they are following your telephone for tax. If you have been having too much money, then you say you don't have. The telephone will tell how much money you spend. And it is coming out to bring about the value of African Union. We have African Union. We 54. You know, everybody must bring a solution. I'm not here to condemn my brothers who are ambassadors, my African brothers who are ambassadors. Please, I'm not against you. I'm only saying this to save you, to see the value of unity. Why are we not united as Africans and have one ambassador representing African Union? Then give him a secretariat, a very powerful secretariat with well equipped with ICT, with all the computers, with everything, a powerful secretariat in New York, in the United Nations, who can handle matters of Guinea-Bissau, matters of Guinea-Conakry, Chad, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. We can have one ambassador with a big secretariat. We cut the costs and we save the money. But look at everybody. 2.5 hours away from New York, on the motorway, you drive, you get into a big limousine to drive you, because for me, I will never dare to drive on American roads. People there can even finish your life. If you talk to one of them, they all have guns, big guns in a car. A man opens, he has a AK-47 just in the car there, you see it. So me, I don't drive. I rather be driven. So 2.5 hours up towards, you find a place called Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., there are again ambassadors. The ambassadors in Washington, D.C., all of them doing the same job, representing the same country. Like Uganda has an ambassador in Washington, has an ambassador in New York, in the United Nations. Surely, can't one ambassador coordinate the two activities? That is the topic today. And that's the topic that I have brought to you people. If you have anything to speak, if you have something to add on, don't hesitate to add on today. Come out tag each other. I want to tell you that you are also, as we speak, you are also on our television station called Punchline Africa TV, and you can see on Twitter via radio, Punchline, and the radio Punchline TV is actually a radio station. I don't know whether they have any music for us to play today. If you have any music, please, I can allow you to come in and give us some African numbers. This is a relaxing moment. So anybody who wants, I can see my brother Oite. You are in preparation going to visit my county. Can you come up and give me my district? Can you come up and give me the latest information? Why are you interested in my district, Mr. Oite? So I can learn from where I am right now. Oite, you come up and speak to us. Miriam, back to you in the studio. The radio station Punchline Africa TV and the radio Punchline Africa television radio station can provide us the background music as we discuss this tough topic. But before we do that, let Miriam give us a background of the 54 missions. My co-host, does it add value when we have AU? Thank you very much. Let's listen to the Miriam talking to us, telling us more meat, adding more meat. We are not criticizing people. And please, we are not telling you to be fired by your presidents. But any president who gets this clip, please, that is what we expect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. It's an open conversation today, so I'll not be coming in with a lot of data. I will be expecting perhaps the rest of our listeners and contributors today to add on to the meet and give us their opinion on their thoughts on the question that you've already posed there. The African Union, a continental body which has 54 member states that make up the countries of Africa continent, and all of these countries do have their missions in the African Union, at the same time do have their missions in the United Nations. So the question is it necessary, as Dr. Matanga has already pointed out there, or could we choose the African Union to be representing the continent in the United Nations? Perhaps I'll give my opinion on that, but I'd like maybe the listeners to maybe whoever who wants to kick us off with this a conversation to just come in and start us off. I'll give my opinion on that. But
I
I'd
can
like
see Oite. You are
the
ready to
listeners,
speak. Go ahead.
maybe whoever who wants to kick us off with.
Oite, you are online. You can go ahead. Miriam,
Yes, so Oite is not ready, but
Oite is
maybe
not
one.
ready.
Mhm.
Honorable Member of Parliament Speaker from Zimbabwe, how are you? Good morning, Magadie Baba.
He's still connecting.
He's still connecting. Enzo, I can see my friend Enzo from Nigeria. Enzo, you are ready to kick the ball. Can you kick the ball for us, please? Once you connect, network is becoming a problem for some people. But the topic is, as Miriam
Mhm. All right. We seem to be having a problem also, Dr. Matanga, from your side. Your connection is not as stable. But that is the topic we have. So, is there anybody who would like to?
Enzo, Wanda, can you speak up? Or Enzo, do you want to speak? Or yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. The microphone is there now.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes, we can
we
hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. Doctor, I salute you special. Madam co-host, you guys are doing a very great job here. Yeah, by bringing up this topic of discussion. For me, in the African context, we have what I will refer to as the hanging cap. Sorry, the bug that has actually eaten so deep into our consciousness to the point that we see ourselves as being inferior to the superpowers, quote unquote, of this world. Now you have the AU and you have the UN. Fine, these are what I call two parallel bodies. All right, I see nothing particularly wrong in having an international presence in the United Nations, but at the same time, how committed are we as a people to the African Union cause? How committed are we to the betterment of our people down here in Africa? Okay, it is a different thing to say, yes, out there in the eyes of the world or in the eyes of the international community, yes, we are good. We can go ahead toe to toe, shoulder to shoulder with you guys. Like we can, form a quorum of representatives that will drive the African policy when it comes to the international space. But down here, my brothers, my sisters, Africa has that leadership vacuum that needs to be filled. So when you have, you're not yet, prepared from home, and you're going out there to eventually disgrace yourself. Come on, what do we call that? That is why I said we have that inherent inferiority complex. Africa needs to get it right, leadership-wise, before we can begin to talk about how we'll be able to relate with the international community. Thank you, guys. Let me just stop here and allow others speak as well.
So for you, my brother, you are saying we are not yet even qualified to speak there. Is that what you are saying? We are not yet, we don't have even we are not united. We go there and talk things that everybody laughs at us. We make requests. We have an embassy in New York. We have another embassy 2.5 hours away in Washington. What did this one in New York do which it cannot do in Washington? That is my question. Hillary, brother Hillary from Canada. I know. Yeah, take it on head on.
It's very early in the morning, but thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much, co-host and all speakers and everybody on board. Thank you for this topic. Actually, I've been listening for a while, and also Africa has 54 mission at the United Nations. That is bullshit because and does it add value when we have AU? It doesn't make sense because in Africa Union, it is useless. Like Kenya is fighting for Kenya, Algeria is fighting for Algeria, Zimbabwe is fighting for Zimbabwe. So why are we calling ourselves Africa Union? That didn't make sense. And these people, they are just using our mind. This is just a mind game. We are being called that we go to United Nation. United means that let us be together. Are we together? We are not. So it doesn't make sense to go to this mission first if We cannot make African Union work. So it is just a matter of puppet and also a matter of mind game of bringing us together and do what they want to do. And let me bring it down to the level that we saw when Queen died. We saw African presidents, they are being carried in buses. How amazing it is. And this shows you that these are our people or our presidents. They are just there, but they are being controlled with other people. And that's why we are just being uh, taken here and there. Let us demolish all these Kenya, Africa, Algeria, and Zimbabwe, and be like United States. Then we put them, these are states, and then we have one government, like what the former president of Libya was fighting for. But do we have that capacity? We don't have, because we have ego, we have all our own interest. We don't have the leaders that don't have interest of the people, but they have their own interest, and that's why we see now they are being taken to United States, doing United Nations to do what? To do nothing, and just other African team to plan out to fight other people or to fight the Africans. Why we Africans, we are just fighting ourselves? Why? Because we don't know what we are doing. So to me, Daktari, I want to say in a simple term that all these things are bullshit. Doesn't make sense. My take now. Thank you.
Because you are from America and Canada, but if you might be the first person to attend this. Those words we usually don't use them, but Hillary, being my
I'm sorry.
friend, next
I'm
time
sorry.
don't use them.
I'm sorry. I will not use them again. I'm sorry
Yes,
for that.
please.
Maybe because I'm used to this westernized countries. But
Yes.
I'm very sorry. Very sorry
Yeah,
for that.
thank you very much for that contribution. For you are saying we are not united. Each country in Africa is on its own, and God is for us. We go there as a disunited. We ask for the money. By the way, anybody on the platform, thank you very much, Kennedy, my brother from the all other mothers of Africa. You are.
Okay, we seem to have lost there, Dr. Matsanga. I don't know if the rest of you can hear me. Doc, we've lost you there for a few seconds. Enzo, I see you have something that you want to add, that you'd like to say. And as Enzo is talking, perhaps Wanda, you could get ready and come up after Enzo. Go ahead, Enzo.
All right, yeah. In response to what my brother Mr. Hillary, pointed out, you're going out there to showcase one-time, corruption, one-time, disrespect to human dignity in the African discourse. We as a people, we need to start getting it right back home. We are not united. You have those in the North Africa, paying their allegiance to the Arabs. You have those of us in the Sub-Sahara, the West African sub-region, doing our thing, literally, And those in the southern parts and the Eastern Bloc, everyone is just trying to play to the gallery. Okay. Now, what stops or what prevents Africa as a continent from coming together to say, okay, fine, we have the resources, we have the manpower, we have the technical know-how, we have the professionals. Why don't we come together to form a formidable force, a formidable unit, a component that will not be easily bastardized by these Western, plunders. We see them. We still believe that someone is going to come for us, at some point. But the truth is this: nobody's coming for anybody. I was opportune, to share or should I say to empathize with our brothers and sisters from Zimbabwe, and they have elections coming up in a few months' time. You know, they have a new, you know, a new fresh candidate in the person of Nelson Chamisa, and he believes, or Zimbabweans believe, that it is time for the ZANU-PF to step aside for fresh ideas. You go to Kenya, the last concluded elections was not marred with violence, which is a step in the right direction. In Uganda, sometime in the past, Bobby Wine lost. You know, we should start, or we should begin to groom leaders that are inclined digitally, that are much more in tune with happenings around. You cannot have an obsolete, old, someone that does not understand, or that is not in touch with the current international economic realities, and you expect this person to pass laws or to pass bills that will affect the desired change we all crave for in Africa. We just end up living in what I call, sorry for using the word, in fool's paradise. It's not going to happen. So the earlier we begin to take back our individual countries, the better for us. Okay? Thank you, guys. Mr. Wanda, Madam Co-host, you have the mic.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Miriam, yes, go ahead, Miriam.
Yeah, I just wanted to invite Wanda next.
Thank you so much, Miriam. When you look at Africa, then the question of the ambassadors coming in, it always goes back to who knows how to control the market. Because when you look into the law of economics in the business, that when the supply is too much, then the demand, that is the price aspect, will always go down. And I always feel like the Western world knows economics so well, and they normally use it to siphon what Africans have at a cheaper cost. Because when you look into Africa and you look into the regional, the economic grouping, regional groupings, like the East Africa community, the SADC, you get into the Western and all these. In most cases, we tend to supply the same products, of which now in this case means the supply is too much in the market. So what you only now need to do, if you're a smart person in the market, then play around so that the supply comes in plenty, that you have so many people that are coming in with the same products. In this case, your bargaining power becomes good. Then you'll easily get whatever you want to get at a very low cost. Now, what Africans what the rest of the world now decided to do in order to conquer us in the same supply demand curving or in the market, that Africa, through nationalism, we ended up being made capitalists, probably either without knowing or knowing. Of which now, being a capitalist society, then every nation as a capitalist, we always struggle to beat each other in terms of economy. That will get Kenyans struggling to be seen as the best in the region. We'll have Ugandans trying to compete and sell their products at times at the expense either of their neighbor or wanting to do better than their neighbor. You'll have Nigeria doing the same. You'll have South Africa doing the same, Zimbabwe. That the capitalist mindset and the West championing the market in the sense of let them now come, all of them in the market, in the sense that let all of them come with the same product in the market, then we'll be able to bargain and make it easy. It made it easy now for the rest of the Africans to provide or to have every nation with their own ambassadors or the offices of the ambassadors. And in this case, if I'm told Africans were in a position to have few individuals campaigning either for a region or bargaining for a region or bargaining for the entire continent, then I'm so sure that the natural riches of Africa could be selling at a very at higher rates. But now we are not able to do it because the Western world is so good in economics and our people have decided not to learn from it, that we have allowed ourselves to get into the market with the same products, and in so doing, we end up affecting the price of our products. Therefore, I wish that it get to a point that even if the African Union is not able to provide, to provide a solution on how we face the market, how we brand our products, then we start having now the regional groupings. If it is the western end of Africa, if it is the southern end of Africa, the eastern end of Africa, then if these regions are now able to sit together, that if it's East African community, then they provide or they handle the ambassador's office as a unit, as a team, that we only need to have representatives in that office, but we have one bargaining power. Then in that sense, we'll be able to beat the market. But if I'm told we keep going there as a nation with a capitalist mind, that we are privatized, I'm a private entity as a nation, then we'll end up losing in the sense that we'll end up flocking the market with the supplies. And in so doing, the law of economics means that the price will always depreciate. I yield, Miriam. Then we'll end up losing in the sense
Okay.
Thank you very
I
much,
have a question for
Miriam. Let me
Mr. Wanda.
Can I come in first?
the law of economics
Mhm.
means that
Yes. Thank you very much,
So, Mr.
Wanda.
Wanda,
Yes.
Mr.
Thank
Wanda,
you
you
very much,
mentioned
Mr.
that
Wanda.
countries in Africa have unknowingly become
Uh,
have mentioned that Mr. Wanda. So my question is, Mr. Wanda, is you mentioned that some countries in Africa have unknowingly or maybe knowingly become capitalistic just by taking a first-hand modern approach, because I feel as if this is to adapt to the rest of the world, and I think maybe this is a good thing, and I think it is biasly, I think it is better than communism, and I think there is a lot of potential, and I'm feeling optimistic for Africa. And it is the middle of the night here in the USA. I stayed up so I could be here with Dr. David. He's always a great host, and this is always a great space. It is 1 a.m. And I am getting tired, but I will go back to listening. But I know wherever Africa goes, the rest of the world follows. And I think you guys, if you can use the power of the internet and unite everybody, you guys can save the world, and just so much potential. And it's okay to be capitalistic, just make sure it's green. Like, if you are capitalistic, make sure you care about the family and the environment. Use the power of the economy to work for the families, to work for the environment, because capitalism is a very powerful system, and it can be used for oil, or it can be used for war, or used for power. It's just a tool that can do anything. And if you use capitalism to work for the people and work for the environment, it could have an extreme amount of benefits. And I'm concerned about China's investments in Africa, because I know, the USA is not perfect and Europe needs to decolonize. I think, we don't need to argue about that. The power of Africa should go back to the people, and I believe the power in Africa should go back to the African people. I believe in decolonization. I believe in independence, and I support all you guys from all your countries everywhere. I have a friend from Cameroon. I got a friend from Nigeria, Ethiopia, everywhere. South Africa, Egypt,
and you have got a
Tunisia.
friend from Uganda.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna
I'm
visit you.
here.
Hey, you guys. And one more thing. I have a brand new iPhone, and I want to give it to maybe somebody in Africa, like perhaps like a young artist or something. If anyone can message me, I want to send them a brand new iPhone, 100% unlocked, and I want them to use a young man to use this iPhone. I want it to be a young man who would never ever even have access to iPhone. I want to give it because I have too many phones. So it's a brand new
Okay,
iPhone,
we
and
shall tap into your. We shall set up some sort of account that
yeah.
will
If any of you know a good
that
boy who
would
deserves it,
I and
message me.
Wandera. We shall work
Thank you
on
for
that
having me. Have a
mechanism.
great day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. World Peace Movement. Darren has always followed my space, and he has been contributing quite a lot on my space. I want to thank you, my brother, for waking up at mid of the night at 4 a.m. to give us your views. And I want to thank you, in fact, Honorable from Member of Parliament from Zimbabwe. He is coming to Zimbabwe this year to invest. He's an investor. These platforms should be used for exchanging views, having people to come and get knowledge, bring in people. That is his organization. It is World Peace Trading Co. Any company. I am not very selfish, and therefore I don't keep these things on my own. When you come to this type of interaction,
Oh, if you
you
look at
can
the picture,
also
it
write
has
to him
some
directly.
African cities.
Yes. Okay.
I
Thank you
posted
very
a
much.
picture up there on the top, and inside the picture there are a list of African cities
Okay.
in the
Thank
black
you.
and white picture.
Thank you very much. Let's have another speaker coming in. Honorable from Zimbabwe, you want to make some comment on the topic that still stands. Africa has 54 missions, diplomatic missions in the UN, at the UN. And then we have AU, which is the organization, an African Union, which unites all of us Africans. Why do we waste 54 ambassadors with 5 cars limousine, each one with a housemaid or house girl or house boy or cook, PA, secretary? Yet we can make one embassy in the UN with a good secretariat. I have not said remove them and then you have nothing. If AU can put a general secretariat, we hire one building. This money could come back to Africa to build clinics, roads. Look at that. That is the suggestion. That I am just suggesting. And ambassadors who are on this platform, don't kill me. I'm not saying your president should sack you from your jobs, but I'm now being a realistic African. I'm realistic. What is it different that is discussed in the AU, in the UN, that cannot be discussed in Washington, D.C.? Why can the ambassador in Washington, D.C. also rotate to sit in the UN? Why do we have ambassadors in countries? Uganda has an ambassador in Kenya, the late who had just passed away. May his soul, my brother from my district, may his soul rest in peace. He was also an ambassador for Seychelles. Very fast, Seychelles, from Kenya to Seychelles is like a 2.5 hours by a very big jumbo jet of 4, 5, 6 engines. But why do we have 2.5 hours from New York, United Nations? We have an ambassador. You see a man from Zimbabwe. I am United Nations Zimbabwe representative at the UN. What for? You don't have medicine at home. You don't have Panadol at home. Yeah? You don't in Nigeria. Nigeria has no power. Nigeria is blackout. They use diesel engines. They are polluting Africa, West Africa, more than every other state. They now have an ambassador earning money. You know how much money they earn a year? $400,000 to $900,000 to run an embassy in New York. Governments pay that money. At least for me, my country, we have a house in New York. We can afford, our ambassador can sleep on the roof of the house and rent the rest and work in one office. That's okay. We earn money. We bought those houses. But some countries rent space in New York. And the space in New York is very expensive. So isn't it time for us? We are here to advise. We are not antagonizing anybody. And the ladies and the gentlemen, don't be threatened by all this, because it's a new concept of media that you should not speak. We have AU, African Union. Mark the word union. Are we in one union, or we are several people talking? As Wanda said, a cheap product, if it comes in so many ways, it becomes very cheap. So you can buy it quickly. These guys have used a divide and a rule mechanism to divide us and confuse us very quickly. When we want to fight in Congo, united to remove a war in Congo, they come up and tell another country that no, tell Kenyans to leave Congo. Have you seen that? That is the topic now. Honorable from Zimbabwe, what were you saying? I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matsanga, for giving me this opportunity to speak on this very important platform. Thank you very much. Let me recognize Wanda there, Ligo, Ogut, Hirari, Africa, as well as Jongo. Hi, how are you guys? Hope you are well. Going back to the submission that was made by my friend, the Enzo, where he was saying, why can't the ruling ZANU-PF give a chance to the opposition, which is led by Nelson Chamisa? Zimbabwe is a democratic party. We value that. So to say, give chance to Nelson Chamisa is something else. So we are saying, if they are given platform to contest, let them contest and see who is the winner to that election. Also, if you see Harare itself, it's being managed by the opposition, but if you come here and see what is on the ground, it's something else. So, to tell you the truth, I was once a MDC, Triple C member, and I jumped to ZANU-PF, which is the party which is moving towards changing people's lives. Right, going back to my contribution for today, whereby we are discussing Africa has 54 missions at the UN. Does it add value when we have AU? It is very unfortunate that the 54 mission does not see the potential and hope that the UN sees in this continent called Africa. Africa should foster peace and development. Right now, there was in Congo, there was in Ethiopia. We are fighting for us. We are just fighting. No stability. When people are fighting, there's no development. We can't expect development when people are fighting. There is also need to focus on our youth and make use of them. Because if you are to tap the huge untapped potential in them, it means we will change as a continent. Youth, they have energy and thinking capacity that can address the challenges we are in as a continent, that could benefit the entire world. For example, we have got human capital as a continent, a huge human capital. Are we utilizing it? We are not, as a continent.
So let me ask you, Honorable.
Yes.
What value do you get from Zimbabwe representative in New York, which you cannot get, or which you cannot get if the ambassador in Washington came and sat in the UN? Is there any confusion? Because some of us, we might be shouting, we are not diplomats. An ambassador, Zimbabwe has 2 people. Let me take my country, Uganda.
Yeah.
Has 2 ambassadors.
Yeah.
As an ambassador in the United, permanent representative, a permanent mission, permanent.
Yeah.
It is actually called Uganda's permanent representative in the United Nations. And then in Washington, it has got Uganda's ambassador to United States of America. Okay.
Yeah.
I know some people are going to come on this platform and tell me UN is independent. It's another country. Yes, I know that. In fact, I even can write the policy without looking there. But tell me, yes.
On that note, Doctor.
Yes.
On that note, we are saying if Africa is united, we can be somewhere by now. We have got what do you call it? Gaddafi was pushing for United States of Africa, right? All those things must be addressed that way, whereby Africa should unite, have one representative in New York, which is going to represent the whole Africa, so that we don't waste the resources. That one I agree with you. Going back to my submission, Africa is suffocating in deaths, while food security stalks millions across the continent. This is worrisome. We have got a vast land in Africa, but we are failing to capitalize or utilize the resources that we have. The world is counting on Africa, and the opposite is heading the other direction. Africa needs new partners who can openly put a win-win situation that can boost the economy. Africa should work towards climate change patterns and establish of a loss and damage fund. And there's also need for climate solidarity that will cater for financial support and technical support that will accelerate the emerging economies and adapt to renewable energy. This thing is only achievable when Africa is united. Development is very important, but there is need to address peace first within the continent. Find the root cause of these internal instabilities and address them within our continent. Address those instabilities. These stabilities, they can only be achieved by continuous engagement. That's my submission for now. Let me hold my mic and listen to others.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And so I see you want to say something, but I'd like to give an opportunity to someone who hasn't said anything yet before I come to you. And I would like also to share my thoughts on the same subject just in a bit. So there are a couple of people that we've heard here, and perhaps you've been listening. And before I respond to that hand that has been raised by Anzo, and would you like to say something and just add your voice to what already has been said? it here. You've been listening, and before I respond to that. All right. So I guess no one is willing to come up yet. So perhaps I'll just respond to Enzo's hand raise, and then maybe I'll just add something after that. Enzo, go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam Co-host. Yes. Let me quickly respond to what Honorable pointed out, that Zimbabwe has an electoral process, and everyone is free to contest and can vote for votes. Honorable, sorry, please, can you please confirm to us, about the reports regarding some very terrible one-time, massive arrest going on in Zimbabwe, especially those in the opposition party of, should I say, the party Mr. Chamisa is at the helm of affairs. Yeah, because we've had these terrible, gory stories, coming out from Zimbabwe about how women are being denied, the list of sanitary pads, those in prison, those that are imprisoned by, Mr. Emerson, and your principal's, abuse of human rights. Yes, I know you work. I know you're in government.
My brother Enzo. The topic today, let's stick to this topic. The question of human rights. We have discussed Zimbabwe human rights long time, and we shall bring a particular topic on human rights. We know it is one of the causes of why Africa is belittled, and we are also judged by human rights. And I believe there are human rights abuses everywhere. That's why refugees are being shipped from United Kingdom, where I am, and they are being taken to Rwanda because are you complaining about that? Yes. No, we hear.
Okay.
Enzo,
Yeah,
Honorable Speaker,
Doctor.
please. You also
Doctor,
put off your microphone for some time, because your microphone is disruptive, is empty, is open.
Thank you very much. Let me respond to Enzo.
Respond and switch off your microphone.
Okay. It is very unfortunate that these are my personal opinion. I don't speak for the country, but let me say this. These are the matters before the court, and we cannot discuss them on this platform. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not, there's somebody whose microphone, Honorable Brighton, switch off your microphone, mute your microphone, please. Mute your microphone. Yes, thank you very much. There is quite a lot to be discussed in Africa, human rights. Wandera and I, we do quite a lot on Friday. Monday, I do quite a lot. If you want that topic of human rights to be brought up, write to me. Send me the topic, Enzo. And I hope you also talk about the human rights between Biafra and the rest of the tribes in Nigeria. Nigeria is bleeding. Also, recently you bought 500,000 daggers. What you are going to do with them? Do you have a forest which you are slashing in that place, and you are going to elections next month? Why are you buying 500,000 daggers? Let's not go there. Let's stick to this topic for today. We have very little time, limited time, and I just asked a question. What is the difference between the UN and America? America is a nation, but UN ambassador can work. One African ambassador from Uganda can as well walk across and work in Washington, D.C., accredited. We save the money. That's all I'm trying to say. Or AU can decide to have one big secretariat in the UN, where the UN missions or permanent missions are not needed. You can't have every African nation with a permanent mission. They can only come for United Nations General Assembly. But they should have one secretariat to avoid expenditure. I'm only crying for expenditure. But if you people see it as a luxurious thing, or it is very good, fine. Miriam, you wanted to have a take on
Yeah.
this. Therefore, the microphone is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. And I've been listening to what our guests today have been contributing in regards to this topic. And I will, first of all, Africa is not homogeneous. We have to have this conversation with that in mind. We are not similar. We are not the same. We are different states with different cultural backgrounds, with different interests that differ in terms of priority, in different ideologies and how we approach matters and issues. And so having that understanding, then that will help us understand how it will be possible to have African Union create a secretariat to represent us to the United Nations as a continent. First of all, let's just look at AU and how it operates. We can't even fund this AU. So AU, 75% of the funding is coming from the European Union and other European Union countries. So in that regard, whose interest really will AU be representing in the United Nations? Second of all, if we decide to get a secretariat that will be representing African Union to the UN, trust and believe there's no way we will ever agree on that as a continent, because the way we have been, the colonizers made sure they left us. They came, they divided us, put these artificial boundaries that we have across the continent, and they divided us along ethnical lines, along religious lines, along cultural lines. So that is something that they were able to successfully do. And that is the reality that we have here. In an ideal situation, yeah, we would sit here and say, fine, Africa, we are one, we are united, and it will be nice to have one center of authority to represent us in the United Nations. But the reality of it is it's not possible. How Kenya wants its issues and the priority Kenya wants the world to hear, to be presented in the United Nations, is not the same priority Egypt, for instance, has. Al-Sisi would be having a different idea. Nigerians or Burkina Faso, people from the Burkina Faso, our realities are different. Our ideologies are different. Our interests are different. So because of that will make it impossible. And the fact that we are not united, trust and believe, we will have elements in that secretariat like we already have in the African Union. And we have some external forces that control the runnings of the African Union. So that will be disastrous for this continent. As it is today, as we speak right now, we know that African Union does not represent our interest. They go to the even have a representative of the African Union in the United Nations. How many times have you heard any emergency from Africa being discussed at the United Nations? We have our own issues here that deserves the attention of African Union for them to be calling meetings, urgent meetings. The issue of Libya, the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, what was happening in Ethiopia, what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The number of times even African Union gets to meet and discuss these issues is very minimal. So they're not able to fully address even what we're having now. And now you want them to represent us at the United Nations. That is impossible. They can't do that effectively. They've proved that they're unable to do that. And then we are not able to fund the African Union. So we don't expect them to go speak with the strength against the same countries or against the same people who are funding it, who are funding this institution. So essentially that will be impossible. They will not be representing our interest. And the issue of having different ambassadors for African, for the different African countries, say in the US, while we have the same ambassadors in the United Nations, the mandates are different. When Kenya has an ambassador to the US, that is a bilateral understanding between two countries. So the business that is being spoken there and the interests that are being advanced there is quite different from what the ambassador of Kenya, a permanent representative to the United Nations, the mandate there is completely different. So look at EU, and I love making reference to EU a lot because it's one of the most strongest blocks that we have across the world. Very strong countries, very strong economies, but they do find a need as much as that. And AU is very united. It's the opposite of African Union, but they still see the importance of having each country be represented in the United Nations and still they do have a secretariat of the EU at the United Nations. I hope we know that, but they do have their own individual countries represented there too with the ambassadors, because they do understand that the mandates are different. When it comes to a point where you have to push for a particular issue for your country, then it will require a different platform and a different voice. So that is why it is necessary for us to have all this representation. Now, do we ever get value for all this representation and the amount of money we spend to sustain all these missions across the world? Maybe not. And other countries are struggling so much because it is expensive. But is it necessary? Absolutely. And until we come to a place where we have an AU that really advances the interests of Africa and really the way it should, then the issue of having AU representatives to the UN, that is a wishful thinking right now, because looking at the facts, it's not possible. So that is my contribution. All right. So what do we? Is that somebody else who would like to say something? Wanda, go ahead.
At times what I really listen to your submission, Miriam, but at times when I look into the formation and the foundation of African Union, of which the African Union was formed on the basis of bringing together Africans, formed on the basis of ensuring that we are brothers, we are sisters, and we are moving forward. And at some point, they even they couldn't move, in the sense that we can't move when we are still having one of our own under the colonial regime. And in so doing, when Africans were now finally liberated from the colonial regime, we ended up realizing the regional economic regional economic communities, or the regional, that is the RECs, of which we have to about 8 of them: the Southern African Development Community, SADC, we have the East African Community, EAC, we have the Community of the Saharan States. It goes on, the Arab Maghreb Union, the COMESA, the ECAS, the ECOWAS, IGAD. Now, at times, what I tend to look at it and feel like we are a confused lot in one way or the other, is that the African Union was formed or was found on the basis of collectivism, of which the collectivism, then it was found on the grounds of treating Africa as a community, that we grow as a community, we grow as a people. But later on, what we are experiencing today, in as much as we have these regional economic communities, we are now having a confusion between the communism and the capitalism. That African Union is behaving like a communist, like a collectivist kind of a team or organization that Africans are party to it. Then you look at, you look as well into the regional economic groups. They are equally found on the basis of treating the groups as a communist, as a collectivist, not an individualism. of which you now look into the members of African Union, the members of these regional economic groupings in Africa, then the capitalism now comes in. That we belong to communism, and at the same time we are in capitalism. There are times at times I find it a bit hard that as you're talking of Africa having 44 missions at the UN, in this case talking of African representation being so huge or too big, we equally have the ambassadors or this kind of representation in economic groupings that live alone outside there. That when you look into SADC or when you look into the East African community, you'll find a high commission office, or you'll find an ambassador's office of Tanzania, a Tanzania office in Kenya. You'll equally find the same ambassador in Tanzania from Kenya. And therefore, I look at it and feel like as nations, we are capitalist in minds and in the way we are doing our things. But as regional economic groupings and African Union, we are buying the ideologies of communism. Then why are we wasting resources, time, and everything having African Union and regional economic groupings? Why don't we do away then with them so that we draw a clear line and say we belong to capitalism, we will promote individual agendas, then we grow as a nation. That USA has about 50 states, but it treats the 50 states as one. The federal government now comes in, comes in and treat the whole US as one. But Africa with 54 countries treats each other independently, but at the same time, talk about the unity of African Union, which in this case is communism. And therefore, I feel like we are confused in one way or the other.
Wanda, just to respond to that before I give an opportunity to our next speaker there, I see somebody by the name of Amai has raised their hand. What the United States has states, but it is one country. In Africa, we have nations. That is the difference. These are 54 different nations. We are not one country. The way the white people look at us here and talk to us as if we are one country. We are not one country. We are 54 independent, sovereign countries, and such it has to be treated like that. We are not one country. We are not one. We are not homogeneous. We are not homogeneous.
And therefore, that's where I find it a problem that African Union was found on the basis of Africa as a team. But at the end of the day, nations are different. So we're having two different ideologies. Why don't we do away with one?
Okay, thank you so much. All right, maybe there's somebody else who'd like to respond to that, but first I'll give the floor to Mai. I see there a word winning or something. You've raised your hand.
Hi,
Go ahead.
hi. I'm my boy here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And Dr. Matsanga, I see you causing trouble again, as usual. The kind of trouble that Africa needs in terms of provoking thought. Thank you for such a timely topic. Wanda, before I make my submission, I just wanted to also respond to your perception of what African Union is. And my view, I think if you'd said Organization of African Union was founded on those principles that you highlight, you would have been correct. And I would like to argue that actually OAU did a massive job fighting colonization. Now, AU, I don't think was founded on the same principles, because if you look at the biggest funder of AU, it's not the African states, it is EU. So AU is like a dummy of the West for me. But that's maybe a topic for another day. Now, Africa has 54 missions at the United Nations. Does it add value when we have AU? Well, um, the mandate of United Nations stems from the peak of colonization and expanding the Western states' colonial and oppressive means of amassing wealth and control and wealth conquest in the 40s, 50s. It was 1945 to be precise in New Hampshire, and the only African state of of today in terms of African states as nations that was present was South Africa. And it was in no way representing the interests of African states or Africans. It was apartheid South Africa. It was a colonial power that was present. So United Nations mandate has never changed from the 40s, from the 1940s, in my view, because if you look at even the voice of African nations at the United Nations, it's not on an equal footing. You are seen as a recipient of aid still, at the mercy of Western states. You look at the various branches of the United Nations that operate various things. You've got the UNICEF, you've got the human rights, you've got the climate, you've got African governments have signed up to these things blindly without understanding what we are going into. And now we are bound by those conventions that we signatory to. One such is the climate aspect, where industrialization took place in these Western states because of use of coal, extracting coal, using it. And during the same time, they were depleting their own natural resources. They were increasing their presence in Africa and exploiting the natural resources. Now that there are these debatable studies that show fossil fuel damage to the environment, Africa is told to stop extracting and using coal. And Africa is not industrialized, so it's naturally a low emitter, carbon emitter. We don't have emissions emanating from most African countries. The most developed a handful of industries in South Africa, and maybe a few in the north and a little bit on the east. But we're not emitting anything at the magnitudes that the West is emitting. And we're told to stop using coal. And we're signatory to the UN Convention. For stopping environmental damage. So we do not think, we just say yes to everything that the United Nations tables, and we're not sitting in the decision making meetings. It's Western governments that are sitting. The extractive industry remains under the control of the West. So, adding value? No. AU relevant? It's the most useless African body that exists. COMESA, ECOWAS, SADC have done more than what the AU has done since it got branded AU and OAU got dismantled. So we're not really adding value by our presence if we say yes to everything. The only efforts that I've seen in the past is when Mugabe was arguing for a seat, a permanent seat in the Security Council, and some governments were mum about it, and we are given a hush kind of participation, and it's just not a farewell yet. You need to dismantle the United Nations. A lot of money is pumped by Western governments through United Nations and through AU as well, and through other dummy bodies such as Africa Development Bank. Who really can argue here, stand up and say the Africa Development Bank has developed this in Africa? the bulk of the money is coming through donors who, some of them are genuine donors, but the script that they're given is a fallacy. And so somebody donates thinking that they're really making a difference to Africa, for the benefit of Africa. If the money that has been pumped into Africa through these bodies was being used genuinely for what it is meant for, Africa would be the same as any other Western nation. The only sector in Africa that has not received donor monies is one of the richest sectors, and is the mobile telephony sector. Nobody in the mobile telephony sector in Africa received donor money. It was all private funding. So that's what needs to happen for everything in Africa, for the health in Africa. And yes, it's. I think it's important at this stage to speak of Africa as one, because the problems with each individual state are very similar. Even though we think we're independent states, we are independent from who, from what? Yet the extractive industry in Nigeria, the oil, is British predominantly. In Angola, it is American predominantly and Dutch. You go to the diamonds, they, the list is endless. You talk of Anglo-America. Why do we still even have that name as legitimate trading on the markets, on the international markets? Gross human rights abuse history. So we need to be very frank as Africans and stop being myopic in our views, and actually take a holistic and an extreme view like Dr. Matanga normally does. But thank you very much for your time. I shall listen in. I've got an imperialist meeting that I have to attend.
What am I? Am I? What did you say?
I said we need to be as extreme in our views of the West as you, Dr. Matsanga.
Like what I do.
Yes.
Yes, and on this one, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
There is something that people have misunderstood.
Mhm.
I am not saying about dismantling whatever you have. I am saying, for example, let me narrow it down. You have Uganda permanent mission in New York, one ambassador. Then in Washington, D.C., you have hired another building, and you have Uganda's ambassador to America. What rationale? What is the value here? Why don't you have the man in New York? Forget about this was created by this, that. Why don't you have that man, the same Ugandan, who is an ambassador in the United Nations, to work in the embassy in Washington? If you want to cut down the costs, if you don't want the root of AU, because Miriam says AU, we are not anywhere near there. We don't know anything. Miriam, why don't you have a Kenyan ambassador who is in New York to be the same ambassador in Washington? What difference do they do? Those are the things with the platform would like to be educated. Maybe you can convince me.
Dr. Matsanga, sorry, before you come, it is Ogu. The budgets are different. This is where the control of the West comes in. If you look at the UN missions, if you really scrutinize the budgets, the bulk of them are from the West. They're not local budgets. So unless African governments start to think like you've just highlighted and challenge the status quo of how those budgets are channeled, they should just do exactly that. That we've got one company. We are one country. And we've got our men already in Washington, D.C. to represent the interests of the nation. So whatever money that is United Nations Commission destined for our country, it should go to the consular in Washington.
To pay the consulate,
Yeah.
to pay the ambassador in Washington.
Yeah.
That's exactly
It should.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Am I? That's what I'm saying.
I totally agree with that. But we're not.
That is what I'm
We
saying.
don't challenge
You need a
UN.
clinic. You need a clinic in Lupane,
Mhm.
Bindura, Victoria Falls. You need a so many things. You need in Onita, Enugu. This man of you need this.
But we need
hospital.
to challenge
What?
it at the United Nations level. It's missing from all our speeches as African states at the United Nations.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not in any.
Exactly.
It's not on
Thank
the
you.
agenda.
Thank you very much, because I might be the only stranger in Jerusalem, and I'd be hanged like Okwonga.
Yeah, I gotta bounce and go work for the imperialists so I can pay my mortgage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amai.
I'll listen in.
Thank you very much. As usual, you always come.
Hi,
to my
everyone.
defense, I think.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tiffany.
You are who?
Tiffany.
What?
Tiffany.
Tiffany from where?
I am from America, and letting you guys know I love black men, and I want to suck every black man's cock in Africa and Ghana.
What is this?
I suck.
Our platforms. Thank you very much. The discussion is getting hotter. Miriam, you had a challenge there, and I did not finish my challenge. But Amai brought in something. I am not talking about the structures. I'm talking about internal accountability. If you cannot go the AU, Miriam, you can go individually as a country to save some money. What do you think about that?
Individually, as countries to the AU or to the United Nations, because we're already doing that. And by the way, AU Secretariat is also represented at the United Nations.
Have you seen the mess we have? The AU has got an ambassador there with the secretariat there.
Yeah,
now
representing the Secretariat.
Now, does it represent what is different that ambassador from Dahomey or Togo or Nigeria will be talking, which the AU does not know?
Well, the AU represents the purport to represent the collective countries of Africa, but the ambassador of Dahomey will be representing their own country. So, but we know AU, the end of the day, does not really represent the interest of Africa, but the Secretariat is represented the same way the Secretariat of EU is represented, the same way the Secretariat of other multilateral bodies are represented at the United Nations. They are represented, the Secretariat.
I can see your point. Now that is okay, clarified. But let's go slowly here. Why can't Kenya pull the ambassador from New York to be the one working in Washington? Don't you save the money?
The mandates are different because the ambassador of Kenya to Washington, that is a different mandate. That is a
What
bilateral
does he
agreement
do? What does the
between the
one in
US.
New York do?
That,
Which
that
the
is, yes,
which the
that is what
Washington one does not do?
yes, because the ambassador of Kenya to Washington, he represents, that is the bilateral diplomatic relationship between Kenya and the US. So the work on the modalities, the work on Kenya's interest in the Kenya's interest in the US, particularly, and that is a great undertaking. So that's what he does.
No, that one of Washington, we can't touch him. Me,
Mhm.
the person that I am, the ambassador, the ambassadors that I'm very disturbed about are the ambassadors at the United Nations, the permanent representatives. Can't the ambassador who represents a country in Africa, who is in Washington, D.C., can't he go and sit in the UN and also listen and then come back to Washington? Why should we have two embassies? These were built to siphon our money, as Wanda was saying. And we have duplicated it on the African continent itself.
Mhm. So Doc, if I can if I can understand what you're saying, okay, fine. So let's let's not
wait
talk about
first,
them.
Miriam. Let me finish.
Mhm.
We have
Okay.
duplicated it on the African continent. We have IGAD. You see every country sending an ambassador in IGAD. What for? Why don't we have one secretariat with the head of IGAD collecting our views? Why have we ECOWAS? We have every country in Africa sending an ambassador to ECOWAS, SADC. We are wasting money. And these ambassadors are not walking on foot or they are not riding a bicycle. You see? These ambassadors are actually medium. They are riding petrol. They have petrol guzzlers. They are taking our money. Ambassador for IGAD. You are representative of IGAD. You can Uganda's ambassador to IGAD. Surely. AU, I can, no problem. I can have. You see, look at what has happened. Why don't we use the same method in AU? I want to tell you, in AU, the ambassador of the country, South Africa, is the same ambassador in the AU. Why haven't we duplicated it in the UN? I'm just asking as a local man in the village here in Croydon. I'm asking, Miriam, have you seen? In AU, it is working very efficiently. But in UN, they don't want it to work. Isn't it one creation of destroying the country's resources? The AU, if Uganda's ambassador in Ethiopia is the same ambassador in the AU. But when it goes to UN, we have two. These guys take money. They take a building. They take offices. They take workers. We pay for their fuel. Isn't it time for us to think of a secretariat? Give it money, give it resources, so that it collects all African Union. And maybe you people have not understood why I twisted this question this way. Does it add value when we have AU secretariat also representing us in the UN? What is the AU secretariat saying which Uganda is not agreeing with? Can the AU secretariat say something and the Uganda oppose it? Then why do we have secretariat there? Haven't we wasted a lot of time? Haven't we copied enough of the Western Hemisphere? material and brought it to our own continent. As Wanda was saying, we have duplicated this capitalistic multiplication of jobs to get jobs for people, to take enemies from a political system by giving them something. And then we are heaping our own. Adeli from Uganda will benefit from the money of 1 million shillings, $1 million that you pay to run an embassy in the UN. How much money does it? You think about it. Everybody here has a country. I am just bringing a debate. And don't kill me because I'm just a messenger of Africa. And Cecily, so many people, please follow each other. We have a few minutes if you want to speak. I have seen Jamal, my brother Jamal. How are you? Jamal, pick the microphone, please.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing?
We are doing fine, Jamal.
That's perfect. Hey, sorry, I just hopped into the space. It seems like a quite interesting topic that you guys were having here, and I'd definitely love to contribute. So I don't know if you're gonna continue with the space right now. I'd love for others maybe to have a take on this.
We continue with our summary. And anybody who has an argument, Hillary, do you have some? I can see Enzo. Enzo is very active this morning. I had to stop him. He was going for human rights check record in Zimbabwe. What about in Biafra? Why are you buying, Enzo, why are you buying daggers in Nigeria before elections? 500,000 daggers were intercepted at the airport in Lagos. What are you buying to slash there?
All right, Doc. Sorry. Actually, the report about some individuals or folks, trying to purchase machetes and any other harmful, materials for maybe post-election violence is unfounded. And it's something that is more or less like what I would call tales by moonlight, because we have no record of that, coming from the mainstream media outlets here in Nigeria. Okay, that aside, Doc, my submission is a quick one. I will start by saying this: every dysfunctional society has a problematic family unit. Okay. I find it very appalling when people come and tell us that Africa is not united, that Africa is not cannot speak with one voice. I say no to that, because we have been made to believe that, because you're from Togo, you're from Zimbabwe, you're from Burkina Faso, Tanzania, Baiso, we are not the same. We are not one indivisible entity. I say it's a pure misdirection, in the sense that before the whites came here, before the Western plunderers came to Africa, we are one united indivisible entity. You can tell me that we may have our individual mother tongues or dialects or different cultures, as it were, but in this discussion of duplication of duties, I'll put it to you guys: the truth is always bitter. That's how we say. That's how we speak in Nigeria. If you are in support, or whoever is in support of this duplication of duties at the UN and back home here in Africa, that person is an enemy of Africa. We should have a unitary representative at the UN. You don't come and tell me that Tanzania are going there to pursue their individualistic economic whatever it is, or that Nigeria is going there to portray themselves as what now? What are you portraying? People back home are hungry. We have the AU there.
I
We have
support
the
you
different.
there. I support you there. People are hungry. We all want food. Why do you have to waste the money on an embassy that you are
Doc,
pursuing a UN channel? What is in the UN that cannot be discussed in Washington, D.C.?
Doc, I am an astute believer in equity, justice, and fairness. Those kicking against this school of thought are indirectly or directly benefiting from this rascality and corruption that is ravaging Africa as we speak. To be honest and frank with you guys, to run an embassy, to run a consulate, it is not chop bread and eat butter. It is not pepper soup like we call it in Nigeria. It is not pepper soup and yam. It costs good money. Why can't we come together and form a quorum? You are telling me that somebody in Burkina Faso does not know the problem of a man in Nigeria has. Doc here has pointed out a whole lot that I am not even privy to as a Nigerian. Then if there is a union or if there is a body, bring your representative, let us go here and have a say. It is very much possible. Even in the United States, all the components that made up that continent in the name of states, different states and all what have you. Some of them have different cultures entirely. So you have the Indians, you have the Aborigines, you have some Mexicans, or should I say the original owners of American continent. They are all living in peace and harmony. So what is the difference? Or why can't we come together and say, okay, fine, the Europeans came and demarcated us via boundary, enumeration. You don't belong here. You belong to this scope. You're a Hutu. You're a Tutsi. You're a this. You're a that. No, we have come of age to say, to hell, or let's do away with this culture of division in the African discourse. You can't be practicing, the same particular brand or style of leadership and expect a different result. It's not going to happen. Mr. Wanda was so much on point that, man, I doffed my hat for him. He said it all. Okay? So the government of the day has made it a duty. They have taken it upon themselves to impoverish the continent, as it were. You are going there to discuss about economic liberation, whereby down to your community, people are wallowing in abject poverty. Most of the diplomats you see parading themselves or gallivanting all over UN and New York, they don't even have pipe-borne water in their communities. But you see them carrying career politicians, career diplomats. My brother, it's high time we look ourselves in the eye and tell ourselves the truth and nothing but the truth. So if you are for this madness, I would say it's madness. You are either reaping from it or you are a crony to the government of the day. Thank you very much, guys.
Answer today, you have made my day. Thank you very much. This is actually total madness. Yeah, some countries don't have even piped water in their villages. They don't have even a road to reach their houses. They have 2 embassies. You find embassy of Togo, in permanent representative for Togo in the UN. And what does he take? The salary. How many people does he take? 3 workers. Porter for garden, porter for washing clothes, porter. This is where Africa, we need to start examining holistically. Miriam, we need to start. I am not, let the mechanisms were created there. That's okay. That's international relations. But no, wait first.
Yes.
Us at home, ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I am not again. I have understood your theory of home, of UN. That's okay. But you, as a person thinking of your country, think of Somalia, for example. It has been fighting from morning up to evening, midnight, and the following morning. It has 2 embassies. It has also a permanent representative in New York in the UN. So the priorities of Somalia would be in the UN because it is under UN supervision. The embassy in Washington should not be there because there's nothing they are getting from Washington. So the man in the UN could be liaising as a liaison officer to pick all what Somalia wants to take home. Isn't it, Miriam? Why should you have 2 men on a country which does not even know how to feed its people? Yes. That's my
All right, Doc.
that's my worry. It is
Yes.
not anything to do with let's break that.
Yes, and I totally hear you, and I also hear what the panelist who submitted just before you there has said in regards to Nigeria. But when you look at, and I do understand sometimes you do overspend in these nations, but are we not attacking the wrong issue? Because we know the main thing that is taking away our resources from this continent is corruption. So let's just attack the right issue here. Hello, Doc. Because sometimes you'll save that money, fine, but still it will be wasted through corruption and poor public money management, like we've seen a lot in our continent. So we have to look at the issue that we're looking at here. So the fact that you cut down on these missions does not mean that money will be channeled to other developmental agendas. Instead, might just find its way into the pockets of a few in our countries through corruption. So if we are really serious about saving public money and the resources, the little resource that we have in the continent, then let's just attack the issue here, and that is corruption. And maybe we will find a solution and we'll start managing our resources well.
Miriam, you have brought it to the real head end. Prince Ojia, how are you from India? Maybe you can save us. India has a population of 1.9 million people, almost coming to billion. Ojia from India, why should Africa have 54 missions in the UN, then have an embassy in Washington? India has the money to pay for those ambassadors. And I'm sure India bought a house. 2 of the Indian embassies, I've seen them. They are all bought. What do you say about that? Microphone. You have just come in, or you can listen, then we can. Let's go back to we are coming to final point that we agree. Miriam, I have now understood what makes you very upset. What makes you state the way you are. We should say even if they save it, it will be eaten. So that's the point. You have made a point. But it could also be part of corruption. It corrupts our system. The leadership back in Africa, the embassy, the advisors have said, they tell the presidents that we need 2 embassies, Mr. President. Yet we need only 1 embassy. Like in the African Union, we need 1 embassy. The man in Washington, D.C. can work in the United Nations without any problem. Yeah, you don't need to have 2 people. You can have 1 ambassador and a deputy in Washington, D.C. Then the ambassador can be going down to New York to sit in those meetings, have a small secretariat there, which it does not pay rent for. But no, you imagine, you taxpayer, you are being told, you have to pay the money. You have to pay all your taxes. You have two people seated 2 hours and a half away from each other by good drive, earning $20,000 per month or $800 or $2,000 or $6,000. An ambassador earns about 800, about that much with allowances. And then you have housemaid, 2 workers, domestic workers, what is entitled with travel tickets. They use the commission. He can't use his own money. He has to use the government money to travel back to the country in Africa. What for? Why can't you use the same style we are using in AU and save that money and then strengthen the corruption loopholes at home and save the money? I think that is, all of us have agreed on that. Miriam, on that one, yes. But Wanda had a point which we should not overlook. He said, mercantile capitalism or capitalism has a way of dividing us. They knew what they wanted to do. They wanted us multiplied as many times as possible. If you have many mangoes in the market, there's a fear that they would rot. So the price can come down quickly to sell them. And that they are sold, they are gone. But if we have few mangoes, the fewer mangoes you have, the price is high. Nobody will drop the price. You say, no, there are very few. And the weather is becoming bad. The season is over. Pay me highly. They will pay you. So we have been caught in that dilemma. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 5 minutes past 11. Sorry, it's 5 minutes past 1 East African time in Kenya. And it is 5 minutes past 10 o'clock where I am here, Miriam. I just want to give closing remarks from my panel today of Ezo. Prince, do you want to speak something before I close down? Say something, because you're a new person to our platform.
Prince might not be very keen on a submission today.
Thank you. Jamal, you want to say something before we go back to our speakers? Hillary, I will begin with you, then come to Ezo, then come to Elif Ziwanda, then come to the co-host. Then it comes the microphone to me, I wind up. And we call it the day. We wait again Friday. We shall be there. What happened to Radio Punchline? It disappeared with our music. On Friday, they should prepare music for us, which we must take home. Some people would like in the wideness of New York, London. We want to hear African good numbers from Mutukuzi in the background when we have a break. Thank you very much. Let's start with Hillary, then Ezo, then Elif. Jamal, if you have something to say. I don't know whether you have. If not, then we shall move in that direction until it comes back to me. Hillary, please. Hillary, can you take the microphone? Your parting shot. Ezo.
All right, Doc. It's been a pleasure, to come and speak on and discuss on issues bothering the African continent, and hearing from different diverse opinions is something that one has to take home and say, okay, fine, I've been able to learn a thing or two from those that are at the forefront of the betterment of the African discourse. I would just say this: corruption is something that has been institutionalized in Africa, and it will take proactiveness and doggedness to get to root it out. If we are going to make headway as a people. All right. So let us all try as much as possible and endeavor to ensure that we create awareness, we create that consciousness within our individual locality. Let us sensitize our people on the need to do away with primordial activities or lifestyle that will hamper the growth of African sub-region and the African continent at large. Thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure having me here. Thank you.
I think I'm the one in the line. Now, when I look at Africa and I look at African Union, at times I tend to believe that African Union died when the likes of Haile Selassie and the likes of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah died. That when you look at African Union and the reason why it was founded, it was all good. Therefore, African Union being there, it's good. The only thing is that the leadership of African Union should go back to the drawing board. They should go back to what the Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and the likes envisioned. Because in so doing, then we'll be able to start winning. We'll be able to start winning these challenges and the battles we are facing. I know it has never settled well to some other quarters, and probably others have ended up arguing that it's the reason people like Gaddafi ended up losing their lives. Their life, in the sense that a united Africa then means a proper bargaining Africa, means a proper represented Africa outside there. Therefore, as I yield this mic, I feel like we should be able to still talk about things more and more. It will probably get to a realization of some to our leaders that having so many persons representing the continent, it is equal to dividing the continent, and it's equal to poor bargaining power. And we will end up now talking about Africa that is rich in natural resources, but the poorest continent in the world. And it all starts with make yourselves be able to bargain properly in the international market. And you can only bargain in the international market if you have very few persons on the table that are bargaining on your behalf. But if you go into the bargaining table, these persons are coming as individuals representing their ends, but you're coming with a very big team. Then it's so easy. You divide against those persons, then you win easily and keep growing. Therefore, African Union is good, but we should go back to the visions of the founding fathers of African Union. Our fathers lived those years back. I fail to understand how they were so smart, very smart, than the current generation that is enlightened generation. Therefore, let us go back to the board let us talk about these things. Probably the leadership will get will open their eyes and minds and start doing things the right way. I yield. Miriam.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think when because we have agreed to be part of the international system as African Union, as individual countries, that means there are some rules that have been set there. So we have to abide. And some of these things have been set in a manner that it does disadvantage the global south. And this is not by mistake, this is by design. So everything that is done in the international system, there is no way it is being done